Hey, Clutter Warriors, welcome back to another episode of the show. I am so excited to have Peggy McColl on the show with us. If you're not familiar with who Peggy is, Peggy has dedicated her life to making a positive difference in the lives of hundreds of millions of people around the world. She's the New York Times bestselling author of Your Destiny Switch, Master Your Key Emotions and Attract the Life of Your Dreams. And Peggy has just completed her 21st book, entitled Savvy Wisdom from Beyond. So, Peggy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Andrew. I'm really a big fan of your work as well and the message that you bring to the world. So it was such a delight to receive the invitation.
Thanks. So when we think about organization, right, and you as a coach, as a thought leader, as a really like a prototypical influencer in the world, talk to me, and by extension everybody who's listening, about how organization supports you and where there are those Achilles heels or possible bottlenecks. Like, where's room for improvement in somebody as accomplished as you are, right, in your life, and what's working? Like, I'd like to get them both.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I absolutely believe there's always room for improvement. I think if we think that there isn't, I think we're in trouble because nothing stays the same, where they're getting better, getting worse. So I'm going on the side of getting better and always looking to improve. I would say I'm a very organized person. I don't know whether you'd say that or not. You're the expert in this area, but I'm a real get her done kind of gal. And when I set my mind to do something, bam, I'm going for it, even if I have no clue how I'm going to get there or what needs to be done to get there. And I really believe what that contributes to is productivity, like getting stuff done. Yeah. And we were talking a little while ago before we even started the interview about savvy wisdom. And I think about the work that you do too. And when I first got the idea in my mind, I was going to write a fiction book, which I hadn't done before. I'd, released 18 nonfiction books. I just started thinking, do I want to even do it? Would I love to write a fiction book? First, that was my first question. I thought, yeah, I'd love that. Okay, what do I need to believe in order to get that? And this just all happens within a matter of minutes in your mind. It's like a conversation you're having. I need to believe it's done. I need to believe it was great. I need to believe it's easy. And so, all right, well, I know how to plant those beliefs and then set a date for completion. See, this is one of the biggest reasons why authors don't get their books done, or they don't get them done in a timely manner, is because they just think it's going to take years, or they've decided it's going to take years, and it certainly doesn't. I wrote one of my books in a day. We can talk about that a little bit later. But I decided I was going to have that book done in 10 days. And I didn't finish it in 10. I finished it in 9. Wow. And so what I did was I just went to my agenda. And I'm a pretty busy gal with, speaking engagements or interviews or teaching or client calls. And I went to my agenda and I just blocked off time where there were windows of opportunity. And it may have been early in the morning. It might have been at night. It might have been on a Saturday afternoon, but I just committed to work during those periods of time and get it done. And I didn't deviate. And I certainly didn't get in my way emotionally. Meaning, feeling, I got to do this, like feeling frustrated about it. I was just having a blast the whole time and just really open to, the energy of this is done and it's great, etc. And I managed to get it done. But I'm an extremely organized person. I set accomplishments, I set my daily tasks, but at the same time, I'm easy on myself. Like I am easy on myself. I think one of the challenges that people have is they're not organized, they're not focused, and then they get upset at themselves, and that just adds
a double whammy, right? Yeah. I mean, you're already suffering the consequences of being disorganized, and then on top of it, you're talking crap to yourself, you're beating up on yourself. It's very hard to motivate yourself if you are not your biggest cheerleader, but you're your biggest critic, right?
Oh yeah. And there's such a great sense of accomplishment when you get it done. Like I remember writing my first book and I made a decision I was going to write it in 30 days, decided I'd get up at 5 a.m. Monday through Friday. I wasn't going to write on the weekends. The weekend was family time. And I would get, my alarm would go off, or what Zig Ziglar used to call the opportunity clock would go off. I'd get up and I'd sit down and I'd write. And I remember at one point thinking, even if nobody reads this book, I feel very grateful that I wrote it, because of the sense of accomplishment that you have with getting it done.
Yes.
with doing something like that. So it's a very rewarding experience to get yourself organized and stay committed to it and get things done.
Yeah, and we just completed a challenge online last night, and so much of the work that we were talking about ties into this, and all your work, my work. The decision is not everything, but it is everything of the beginning, right?
Right.
Committing to it and making the decision. All of the waffling before it, and clutter is nothing more than deferred decisions, right? The things that are piling up around us are all those decisions that we capitulated on, and we just, oh, I'll get to it later or someday. I can't decide, so I don't decide. And then stuff just piles up around you. And so
Exactly.
much is alleviated by good, bad, or indifferent, make the decision. You can change your mind a million times, but
Right.
pre-decision, nothing happens.
So true. And even if it comes out crap, well, that's okay too, right?
You learn.
That's it. Well, when I wrote so Savvy Wisdom is part of a series of books. There's 3 in the trilogy. I had written the second book when I got out of the hospital. So about a year and a half ago, I was diagnosed with metastatic cancer.
Oof.
And yeah, it was right. And so it was in my tongue and in my neck, all over my neck. So what the oncology department decided to do was radiation treatments, because this type of cancer is treated with radiation and curable with radiation. So that's all. I mean, I thought, woohoo, I just dodged a bullet. No surgery, no chemo. That's great. I had no idea what I was in for. Because when you're getting radiation to your mouth and your neck, like, oh, good Lord. I mean, my throat was so sore and I was so sick. This is another actually example of how I managed the business while I was dealing with this. I ended up hospitalized for a couple of weeks. I was in pretty bad shape. So I get out of the hospital, I'm recuperating at home, and I decide I'm going to write Savvy Wisdom 2. And in this book, it's all made up, right? These are stories. These are books that are based on my life, inspired by my life, which is, easier to write, of course. So I decided to write, that Sophie, the main character, was diagnosed with metastatic cancer, because I just gone through it and recovered. And it was probably too soon to be writing. And I had written 7 chapters. And I remember leaving my office and going out to my living room and sitting with my husband. And I asked him, would you be willing to listen, as I read these 7 chapters? He said, sure. And I read the 7 chapters and he wasn't really responding. And I could tell by the look on his face that he wasn't really into it. And I said, what do you think? And he said, you want my honest opinion? I said, that's the only one I'm looking for. And he said, it's not very good. And I didn't want to hear that, but he was right. And so I just flushed it. I literally flushed it and decided to start again. And I'm glad I did. I'm really glad that I did. Now, was I in the right energetic state to write? I was still recuperating, still feeling the effects of what I had gone through. Could have been that. But I decided to adjust and get back to work. And that's what I did. So I did write 7 chapters, which obviously took a considerable amount of time, and just decided I'm flushing it. We're going to start again. But it was necessary.
Right. And being able to give yourself that permission, right? So often, again, in the work that I'm doing with folks, and I'm guessing with the students and the people that you teach as well, one of the places that they get stuck is they want mommy or daddy or their big brother or big sister to give them permission, right? There's that deference of, and it's a curious thing, right, about the human condition, because I don't have the authority to give you permission to live your life as you wish. I can be the catalyst, I can be your cheerleader, but ultimately it's up to you to make the choices that are in alignment with your values. They're not my values.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, and so listening to you talk about the process and your willingness to, you weren't completely sold. He reflected that back to you. It's not great. Right. And that you were willing to, instead of trying to, we can find an aphorism for anything, right? We could make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, or we could just let it go. We don't need to try to, there might not have been enough material there to salvage. Probably better to just let it go because again, you know that you have the ability to write more. Like that wasn't the last 7 chapters in you.
Yeah.
And I think people often have that mindset too, of like, somehow this is going to go away, as opposed to, without getting overly woo-woo, right? That sense of, if you're tapped into source, that's an infinite flow, right? We might be finite, but the availability of new information, new ideas, if you're open to it, it is a fire hose. It's not a trickle.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think, what you just said there about, finding the gift, a purse, a silk purse with a sow's ear, I think you reminded me of, even when I got the diagnosis of cancer. I mean, I'm running a business, I'm a busy lady, and hearing that diagnosis, I just immediately went to, okay, what's great about this? Where's the blessing? Because there's a blessing in everything. The fact that I wrote 7 chapters, Flush started again. What's the blessing? I created a better quality product.
Right.
And there's always a blessing in everything that we do, even if it doesn't work out the way that we want it to work out.
Yeah, I had a mentor tell me a long time ago, inside every disappointment is the seed of an equal or greater opportunity. And it's, even when you can't see it, right? In retrospect, if not in the moment, I trust in the moment that it's true, even though it doesn't feel true. And in retrospect, without exception, it has always proven to be, it might have sucked in the moment, but inside of it was something equal or greater consistently.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. That's absolutely true. I remember chatting with my son, who's 30 years of age. He has 2 children. And so this is about 1.5 years ago, and his daughter had just been born. And he said to me, what are you looking forward to? Get something to look forward to. And I said, I'm looking forward to your daughter's wedding. And my son and his wife just got married last year. They've been together like 13 years, but they weren't married, and they decided to make it all legal, and which was fun. We had the best time at their wedding. And so I said, well, I'm looking forward to your daughter walking down the aisle. And he said, well, that's next year. I said, no, not your wedding, her wedding. I'm going to see myself watching my granddaughter get married, which will probably be in who knows how long, 25 years, 30 years, who knows?
Right. But you'll be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. That is the plan.
Yeah. So for listeners who are possibly new to you, new to the idea of being decisive, of making commitments, what's 1 or 2 low-hanging fruit, quick wins, easy wins that we can give them from your vast database of knowledge that can really deliver a big win with a baby step, so that they can really experience the juiciness of mindset shifting, staking a claim, taking ownership of what you want, manifesting what you want. I mean, there are no shortcuts, and there are, we have your vast knowledge to at least a little less trial and error for some of the people who are just learning how to do this work.
Yeah, well, I'm a huge fan of personal development materials, and started studying with Bob Proctor in January 1979, which was a few years ago now. And I got into the study because I wanted to change my own life, which I did. And then when I magnificently or magically made such positive changes, I thought other people need to know about this. But of course, there's so much material out there on this, and so many experts on the topic as well. And we hear a lot of suggestions and tips and strategies for manifesting whatever it is that you desire, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to having a goal that you are in love with. And as simple as that may sound, or overly simplistic it may be, most people don't. They just don't have a goal that they're really excited about. You have to get one. And then once you have that goal, the way to manifest it is to feel as if it's in your life now. And I mean, if we really had like 60 seconds and I had to give you the best of what I've got, I would say, set a goal that you're in love with, get in harmony with it, feel as if it's in your life right now, and do that every day consistently. Boom. Okay. That was probably 15 seconds, not even. And okay, so that sounds simple, the challenge is we're habitual creatures. We're going to do the same things, say the same things, feel the same way every single day. And in some cases, people are addicted to their emotions. They're addicted to being angry. They're addicted to being frustrated. They're, addicted to being disillusioned. They don't even realize that they're addicted to these negative emotions, but we got to break the old patterns. And the only way to do that is through discipline. You've got to discipline yourself. I remember back in the 90s, after I'd been studying these materials for a long time, I wasn't really feeling great about the accomplishments that I was making. And I felt I should have made a lot more progress. And where things really shifted for me and took a quantum leap was when I decided to get disciplined. And I created this little tool for myself called the Daily Discipline Checklist. And these were things that I was committed to every day that would put me in harmony with what I desired, because I know that's the secret, like that's the ticket, to get to where you want to go. And so that's how I discipline myself. I had this checklist, and as we know, checklists work and can work very well. And I wrote down the things that I'm committed to do every day. And it was a Monday through Sunday type of sheet. And I just checked off, check. And if I didn't do it, there's obviously a hole there, which I don't like to see. I want all checks. and so that was the thing that I did that really made a big difference, was discipline myself.
And so, yes, was there something about that commitment to yourself that the state you were in before you made that commitment, made the list? Can you talk a little bit about that because it was, you wanted the success, you wanted the accomplishments, right. You wanted to participate in a certain way, and yet you were in the kind of habitual fog of better than most, but not where you wanted to be.
Exactly. Yeah, I was in a state called dissatisfaction. And dissatisfaction doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad state to be in. It can be an empowering state because you're not satisfied with the way things are, or you're not satisfied with your results. And so dissatisfaction can stimulate you into growth. It can stimulate you to make some new decisions and to get committed to your results. So I feel grateful that I was in that state of dissatisfaction, because it was just like, enough is enough. It's time to make some positive change. And like, let's see, I mean, we're going to use this time anyways, right? We're here. We've all got the same amount of time, although we don't know how much that is.
Right.
And it's just how you're using it. This isn't a trial run here. I remember one of the quotes that Bob Proctor used to use at his seminars, and I think it was Earl Nightingale that said it, that most people are tiptoeing their way through life, hoping they'll make it safely to death. Well, we're all going to get there. Yeah. It's just, how, what's your journey like, and how are you enjoying this wonderful experience called life? As we are all blessed to make the decision and choose to live the way we want to live.
Yeah. Well, great stuff. So let's talk a little bit more about the book. Where can folks find the Savvy Trilogy?
On Amazon. It's everywhere. It's readily available. And Savvy is spelled S-A-V-Y, not like the word savvy. It's actually a name. It's the name of the main character that Sophie meets in the beginning of the first book in the series. And so I had to create this character. What was fun is that when I started writing the book, I didn't know what the book would be called. I didn't know what his name would be. And it just came to me. Mm-hmm. And I just liked it, S-A-V-Y. And I decided it's going to be short for Stephen Alexander Vaughan, which was this billionaire, wise gentleman that came into Sophie's life to give her advice on how to change her life, transform her life. And they develop a really strong bond and a friendship. And Savvy is a character that I created based on Bob Proctor. He was in love with Savvy Wisdom, like madly in love with it, and which was so much fun, because he actually, in the first book in the series, there's a letter at the end that Savvy writes to Sophie. And when I finished the book, I hadn't written the letter, and I sent the book over to Bob and I said, I'd love for you to write it. And he said, sure. And he wrote me a text the next morning, and he said, I'm mad at you. And I said, why? He said, you kept me up last night. He said, I started reading your book. He said, I couldn't stop. So he actually wrote the letter from Savvy to Sophie at the end of that book, which is pretty awesome.
That is awesome. It's so, I mean, those kinds of, they're just delicious bonuses that, I mean,
Yeah.
every writer dreams of having something like that, right? Also because of your deep friendship with Bob. And it's just, again, it's one of those double wins where the magic happens, and it's real life, it's fictional, and it just ties everything up. It's just what a great story.
Yeah, it was, I mean, the whole, even the writing of it, I got this email on the 31st of October in 2020, and it was from one of my team members, and she suggested that I write a letter or create a video called How I Wrote My First Fiction Book. And I'm looking at that thinking, doesn't she know me? Like, I've never written a fiction book. And so why would I do a video on something that I've never done? And so I'm not going to do that. And before I went to the next topic that she suggested, I just paused and thought, do I want to? And I thought, oh, yeah, absolutely. And I just felt inspired to do something I'd never done before, and got out of my own way and got on with the work. So it was fun how the whole thing came to be, because it wasn't a plan. And so November 1st, I started with the work with the intention of finishing by November 10th, and I finished on the 9th. And then I sent it over to Bob, and he finished it off for me, which was so great.
Oh, that is an excellent, excellent story. And I just love that it wasn't even on your radar until this thing came. And a great, I think, lesson as well, that your first response, as accomplished as you are, that your first response was, I don't write fiction.
Right.
The second response was, but I could.
Yeah.
Do I want to write fiction? Maybe I do. Right. And that was the little seed, or the little germ of that was, it's another example to the listeners, right? That, I mean, and for me, the origin of this work that I'm doing, right? I worked in the theater for 20 years professionally. It was when I got laid off from a theater job in Seattle, and I was invited to co-produce an award ceremony at the Kennedy Center. One of the awardees, Nobel Peace Prize winner, went to his office to get photographs. They were a mess. And instead of saying, when they asked me, would you like to organize our photographs for us? Instead of saying, no, I don't, I don't do that. I direct plays and I produce plays.
Right.
No, you're a lovely human, and no, thank you. Instead of saying no, I said yes. And as a result, everything has come after that. And we are presented with these things that at every one of those flexion points or pivots, we could say yes, we could say no. And it's not always appropriate to say yes, but it's always probably useful to examine the question and see, is there a yes there that is in alignment with my values, that would delight me, as opposed to rejecting it offhand because it doesn't look like what we expected it to look like, or what we imagined it would be.
So true. Oh my goodness, you're absolutely right about that. And, I think that we just have to be open to that, stay open, remain open, because you just never know what's going to come along, and where it's going to go as well. Like when I, did those books, I've got this little sheet that I keep on my desk, and there's some images of me and Bob holding Savvy Wisdom, and on stage as well. But these are all texts that I got from Bob about the book. And one of the things he said to me, and I have the little text here right now, he said, this is going to be so big. Like, he just felt intuitively that Savvy Wisdom was going to be big. And here's what he said. He said, I saw Elvis his first time on TV. I was working in a bar. So this is around 1964. He was on the Tommy Dorsey show. He said, I put my tray down and I stood there stunned. He said, I knew he would be the biggest ever. He said, that's how I feel about Savvy Wisdom. And it's like, whoa. And yeah. And he said to me, he said, I've never felt that before. I'd never felt that before, except when I saw Elvis, because he says, I'm in the bar and there's a TV in the corner. And all of a sudden, Tommy Dorsey brings out this guy, who's a new singer. Like, I don't know if you have seen any of the
footage
of Elvis. And I don't know how many other people saw him and thought, oh, this guy's going to become the king, of rock and roll. But he did.
Yes.
And, Bob felt that so strongly. And, why is it that one will take off like that? Or why is it like, think about, this may not be the best example, but think about Erica Mitchell. I don't know if you know that name, but she writes under the name E.L. James. She wrote a book called 50 Shades of Grey.
Yes.
And, it was her first book. And she released it. In her first year, she earned $95 million. And, I understand that that's the most that an author earned within a year of releasing their first book. Right. Now, I know other authors have earned, those kinds of numbers or that kind of money, but that was her first book. And then where did it go? Right. Book 2, book 3, right. Another one, movies, big movies, and, became a worldwide success. Yeah. Did Erica Mitchell know that was going to be like that when she released it? But you know who that opportunity is available for? Everyone. Right. Anyone and everyone. Yep. If you can fog a mirror, that's what I always say. If you can fog a mirror, you can create success.
Yep. Well, that's a great, and that, right, you're here. Every moment there's an opportunity, and again, glass half empty, glass half full. Where do you want to put your energy? Where do you want to put your attention? Where do you want to put your focus? Right. I like you, I feel like I'm an ordinary person in so many ways, right? I've accomplished some great things in my life. There's plenty more that I want to do. And all of that has happened because I made a commitment. I made a decision. I made a commitment. And even if I didn't know how it was going to happen, I believed that it was going to happen. And then it happened, right? Yes. Yeah, so true. Like William James, believe and your belief will create the fact. Yeah. Such a simple idea, simple understanding, but you know what? Most people aren't willing to do the work, and there's work involved. Oh, most definitely. There's a big road or runway between imagining it and it becoming manifest, and that's the journeyman's part of the work. Right. But even the willingness to think, well, if I can dream it, it can happen. If I'm willing to do the work, why can't I? I'm not going to become a brain surgeon. I could, but I'm not willing to go to medical school for 12 years. So I won't become a brain surgeon. But it's not that it's beyond me to become a brain surgeon if it was the most important thing to me. So I think you should do it. There's other things that I'd like to do in those 12 years. Okay. And I don't love formal, academia enough that I want to go back for 12 years, but I appreciate the encouragement. I do. I'd encourage you to do anything you wanted to do. Thank you. Thanks. Well, as we draw to a close, and it's such a delight to talk to you and such an expansive opportunity for our listeners to just continue to work on the mindset of what do you want? Because certainly in the most reductive way, when we think about decluttering your life, simplifying your life, right? Getting the physical objects out of the way, the whole end game of that is time to do the things that matter. Moving crap from room to room in your house and buying things that you don't need, deacquisitioning things that you're done with, that's a means to an end. It isn't the end of itself, right? Clearing the path so that you have an unobstructed path forward in your life is the goal of decluttering. It isn't, and it should feel good as you do it, but the prize, the cash and prizes is free time. All of those some days and laters are suddenly today because you don't have to waste your time looking for your keys or your mobile phone or your bag or your living will or the title to your cards. You know where those things are, so you can actually get about the business of your life. And so true. I feel like that's available to everybody, right? Like if you can fog a mirror, you can get organized and you can get about the business of your life. So as we draw to a close, is there anything, like any last ideas or thoughts that you want to share with folks about getting out of their own way, simplifying and then blossoming?
Yeah, absolutely. As you're saying that, I'm thinking about just how precious time is, and it's, I believe, our most precious commodity.
Yes.
And most people aren't using it or utilizing it in an effective way as an investment, per se. But what also floats into my consciousness is this idea in one of the books that I wrote called "Infinite Patience Produces Immediate Results," which simply means that, and this is something I see with a lot of people, is they get frustrated because things don't happen as fast as they'd like or in the time that they'd like. And, quite often people are just guessing at when something is going to happen. And that's why I say remain flexible. But infinite patience produces immediate results is really around when you feel as if that goal or that dream or that accomplishment is already done. Well, if you're really genuinely feeling it, you're going to be feeling it right now. So there's no need for impatience. None. You're feeling it. And when you think about it, goals, why do we want them? Because of how it's going to feel when we have it. So could I feel it now? Absolutely. You can feel it right now. That's why infinite patience produces immediate results. Feel it now, baby. That's what I say. Feel as if it's in your life right now and do everything you can every day to feel it. And you can be doing multiple things at one time. Like this morning, I was in my office. I had my earbuds in. I'm listening to me talk to me about how amazing my life is. I do that every day. And I don't do it a little bit. I do it for hours. But when do you do that, Peggy? As soon as I wake up, as soon as I'm consciously aware, I plug in headphones and start listening. And by the time I get in my office, I've already had a couple hours of listening. I mean, I was in the shower this morning listening, to headphones with a, bathing cap on or a shower cap on. So find a better way to, utilize your time is what I would suggest.
Excellent. Well, Peggy, really, thanks so much for taking the time to be here with us, for talking with me. I can't wait to read Savvy Wisdom from Beyond. Well, I'll start with the first book.
Sure.
I'll get to the third one after I read the first two. And thanks, thanks again. If people are wanting to find you, find the books besides Amazon, like where can they find you?
PeggyMcColl.com. It's just my name, PeggymcColl.com.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Peggy. And
Thank you.
everybody, we'll be back with another episode and other delicious, exciting, smart, generous guests like Peggy McColl. Thanks, Peggy, for being here.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
Bye, everybody.